The silence in the small conference room was punctuated only by the hum of the overhead ventilation and the barely audible whir of the projector on standby. Marjorie Thompson, her posture rigidly upright in the ergonomically designed chair, finally broke the quiet. Her voice, usually a practiced murmur of corporate diplomacy, carried a barely concealed note of satisfaction, an undertone that grated against the otherwise sterile environment. "Kira," she began, her gaze unwavering. "After 15 years of your dedicated service with TechVantage, we've arrived at a point where we need to restructure your position." I sat opposite her, a polished oak table separating us like a battlefield. To Marjorie's right, Denise, the head of human resources, maintained a stoic, almost unblinking expression. Both women were impeccably dressed, their corporate attire a uniform of carefully crafted regret. Their faces were a study in feigned empathy, a mask designed to project a difficult decision, rather than a calculated maneuver. It was a performance I had witnessed many times, albeit from the other side of the table. "The company is moving in a new direction," Denise interjected smoothly, her voice a soothing drone, as she slid a thick manila folder across the gleaming tabletop. The folder, plain and unremarkable, felt heavy with implication before I even touched it. "Your contributions, Kira, have indeed been invaluable," she continued, her eyes briefly meeting mine before flicking back to Marjorie. "But we are consolidating the research division under the product development team to streamline operations and foster greater synergy." I nodded slowly, a thoughtful gesture that belied the surge of adrenaline beginning to course through my veins. I accepted the folder, its coarse paper cool beneath my fingertips, but made no move to open it. I didn't need to. I knew precisely what its contents would entail: the standard severance package, 2 weeks of pay for every year of service, a paltry sum for a decade and a half of my life, continued health coverage, a temporary lifeline for 3 months, just long enough to bridge the gap before the next company health plan, or the grim reality of Cube Array, and, of course, a curated list of career counseling resources, generic, utterly useless brochures I would never, not in a million years, bother to consult. "I completely understand," I replied, my voice steady, betraying none of the calculated calm I was exerting. "These decisions are never easy." A flicker of palpable relief crossed both their faces, a subtle loosening of the carefully maintained composure. They had clearly anticipated a far different reaction: tears, perhaps, a torrent of desperate protests, or even a furious outburst. After all, I was a 55-year-old woman, ostensibly being unceremoniously pushed out of a cutthroat tech industry that notoriously prized youthful vigor and unseasoned ambition above proven experience and seasoned wisdom. What they couldn't possibly know, what their meticulously prepared corporate script didn't account for, was that I had anticipated this exact moment for weeks. The first tremor of the impending earthquake had arrived in my inbox last month, in the form of a misdirected email thread, a digital whisper of a plan not meant for my eyes. "Would like you to clean out your desk by Friday," Marjorie continued, her voice gaining a renewed surge of confidence from my apparent acceptance. She leaned forward slightly, now fully in control of the narrative. "We'll need your key card, company laptop, and phone before you depart. Your team will be notified this afternoon." My team. The phrase hung in the air, a silent accusation. 6 brilliant engineers. A collective of innovative minds I had personally recruited, meticulously trained, and patiently mentored over the years. The very same team that had collaborated with me, late into countless nights, to develop the intricate distributed processing algorithm that now served as the very beating heart of TechVantage's flagship product, AccountSphere. AccountSphere, the accounting software utilized by over 40% of the Fortune 500 companies, a veritable leviathan in its market, stood on the shoulders of my ingenuity. "Of course," I said, rising smoothly from my chair, the movement unhurried and deliberate. I met Marjorie's gaze, then Denise's. Is there anything else? They exchanged brief, bewildered glances, clearly thrown off by my unshakable composure. Their corporate playbook had no chapter for this. Marjorie, ever the quicker to recover, straightened her shoulders. That's all for now, Kira. Thank you for making this professional. The word hung awkwardly in the air, a tacit acknowledgement of their expectation of drama. As I retraced my steps, walking slowly back to my office, I passed the glass-walled conference room where the executive team was deeply ensconced in a meeting. Through the transparent barrier, I could clearly discern the figure of CEO Victor Lawson, his arms gesturing animatedly towards a large projection screen. The PowerPoint presentation was titled, in stark, bold letters, Q3 Revenue Projections. It was the same Victor Lawson who, just last year at the prestigious industry conference, had shamelessly claimed full credit for my algorithm, referring to me only as one of our talented research team members. The casual dismissal still stung, a faint but persistent echo in my mind. Reaching my office, I pushed the door shut with a soft click, a decisive act that separated me from the bustling corporate facade. I pulled out my personal phone, its cool metal casing a stark contrast to the sterile environment, and sent a single, concise text message. It's happening. Friday is my last day. The response was instantaneous, vibrating in my hand before I could even lower the device. Perfect timing. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight to finalize details. A slow, knowing smile spread across my face as I glanced at the calendar widget on my desk. Today was Wednesday. Friday, I would walk out of Tech Vantage for the very last time. And Monday, I thought, a quiet sense of anticipation unfurling within me. That day would be truly fascinating. That evening, the air thick with the promise of change and a hint of culinary delights, I met Gregory Sullivan at Meridian. It was an upscale restaurant, deliberately chosen for its discretion and its considerable distance from Tech Vantage's sprawling glass and steel headquarters. As the astute CEO of Precision Systems, Tech Vantage's largest and most formidable competitor, Greg understood the paramount value of secrecy. He had secured a private dining alcove tucked away in the very back of the establishment, its intimate space shielded from the prying eyes of casual observers by elegant Japanese screens adorned with intricate cherry blossom patterns. They actually did it, Greg murmured, shaking his head with a mixture of disbelief and satisfaction. After we had placed our orders for the evening, a flicker of amusement danced in his eyes. I suspected they might, but to cut the very person who developed their core technology, it's a level of corporate myopia that almost beggars belief. Victor never truly grasped what I actually created, I replied, taking a deliberate sip of my water, the coolness a pleasant contrast to the warmth of the conversation. He saw the implementation, the polished user interface, the vast marketing potential. But the underlying architecture, the intricate web of logic and innovation that powered it all, that was just tech stuff to him. A black box. Something he could take credit for without bothering to understand. The irony of the situation was almost too perfect, too painfully exquisite to be anything but true. Just 3 months prior, a nagging suspicion had led me to a startling discovery. The patent application for my distributed processing algorithm had never, for reasons unknown to me at the time, been properly filed by Tech Vantage's legal team. When I had inquired, a well-rehearsed chorus of apologies and assurances had followed, claiming it was a mere oversight. They had vehemently assured me they would handle it immediately. But something about their response, a slight hesitation in Denise's voice, a flicker of something unreadable in Victor's eyes, had seemed off. It had prompted me to delve deeper, to meticulously scrutinize the company's internal documentation, buried within layers of digital files and archived memos. That's when I had found it. A strategy memo, chillingly devoid of any moral compass, outlining their insidious plans to claim the algorithm as generic, company, developed technology, without specific inventor attribution. They had calculated. They had planned to push me out, to discard me as a disposable resource, before officially securing the patent. Why? Because they knew, as all corporations do, that intellectual property developed by an employee, using company time and resources, typically belongs to the company. It was a perfectly legal, if ethically dubious, maneuver. What TechVantage didn't know, what their meticulously crafted strategy failed to account for, was that I had already been working on significant refinements to the algorithm. These improvements weren't merely iterative tweaks. They were substantial enhancements, developed entirely on my own time, utilizing my personal equipment and a profound, intimate understanding of the problem space that only I possessed. These critical improvements, which dramatically amplified processing efficiency by an astonishing 43%, were not, by any stretch of the legal imagination, covered by my employment agreement. I had quietly, meticulously, and strategically filed for a patent under my own name last month. The application was fully documented, fortified with irrefutable timestamps and detailed development logs that unequivocally demonstrated the work was completed outside of company time, entirely independent of TechVantage's resources. The patent, thanks to Greg's invaluable introduction to a top-tier intellectual property attorney, had been granted with remarkable speed, a testament to its originality and the thoroughness of my documentation. All the paperwork is finalized, Greg stated now, his voice a low, satisfied rumble as he slid a slender, cream-colored folder across the table towards me. The folder felt lighter than the one Denise had given me, yet carried infinitely more weight. As soon as you sign, Precision Systems officially acquires exclusive licensing rights to your patent. The press release goes out Monday morning, announcing you as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I reviewed the documents carefully, my eyes scanning the dense legal jargon, though I had already memorized the critical terms. The details were almost too good to be true, yet undeniably real: a 7-figure signing bonus, a substantial equity stake in Precision Systems, a company on an undeniable upward trajectory, and ongoing royalties from all products that would, in the future, integrate and utilize my groundbreaking algorithm. It was more than vindication, it was a testament to my true value. What do you think Victor's face will look like when he realizes what's happened? Greg asked, a genuine, irrepressible grin spreading across his features. He made no effort to hide his profound satisfaction at the impending prospect of Victor Lawson's utter bewilderment. I'm more concerned about my team, I admitted, the smile on my face softening as my thoughts drifted to Miguel and the others. They don't deserve to be caught in the fallout of Victor's short-sightedness. Greg nodded, his expression turning serious. Already addressed. We have positions for all 6 of them if they're interested. Senior roles, Kira, with significant raises and ample opportunities for growth. Precision Systems values talent, regardless of where it comes from. I picked up the pen and, with a flourish that felt both final and exhilarating, signed the last page. I closed the folder, a soft click echoing in the private space. In one elegant, perfectly orchestrated move, I had secured my financial future, ensured the protection and advancement of my loyal team, and, perhaps most importantly, guaranteed undeniable recognition for my life's work. To new beginnings, Greg said, raising his glass, the ice clinking softly. And to owning your own value, I added, clinking my glass against his, a triumphant glint in my eyes. Thursday and Friday passed in a surreal blur of official exit interviews, meticulously detailed knowledge transfer meetings, and genuinely heartfelt goodbyes to colleagues who had, over 15 years, become more than just co-workers. I maintained my professional composure throughout, an impenetrable shield against the swirling currents of office gossip and thinly veiled sympathy. Rumors, as they always do, spread across the company like wildfire. Administrative assistants in the hallways gave me sympathetic, almost mournful glances, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and admiration for my stoicism. Junior developers, awkward and earnest, approached me cautiously, asking if I'd be willing to provide LinkedIn recommendations before I left. I agreed, of course. My generosity wasn't kindness. It was part of the plan. I documented everything with an almost obsessive meticulousness. Every project, every intricate password, every established process, every nuanced detail of the research division's operations. I did so with the full, unwavering knowledge that TechVantage, in their short-sightedness, would soon discover just how utterly thorough they needed me to be, how indispensable my intimate knowledge truly was. My decision to leave comprehensive, almost encyclopedic transition notes wasn't an act of kindness, nor was it a mere professional courtesy. It was evidence, unimpeachable evidence that I had, at every single turn, acted in absolute good faith, while the company, undeniably, had not. It was a paper trail, a digital breadcrumb, leading directly to their inevitable reckoning. During my final exit interview on Friday afternoon, Denise from HR, her movements precise and almost robotic, efficiently went through the standard checklist. Her tone was flat, devoid of any genuine emotion, as if she were reading from a pre-recorded script. "You understand, Kira," she stated, her voice unwavering, as she pushed a non-disclosure agreement across the polished table. Its stark white paper a stark contrast to the dark wood, that any intellectual property developed during your employment remains the exclusive property of TechVantage. "Of course," I replied pleasantly, my voice light and agreeable. I made sure to emphasize my qualifiers ever so slightly, but Denise, too preoccupied with the mechanical efficiency of checking boxes on her digital form, seemed not to notice anything developed within the scope of my employment, using company resources, during company time. The unspoken part, of course, was the crux of the matter. Anything not developed under those parameters was unequivocally mine. And do you affirm you have no copies of proprietary company information? She pressed, her gaze fixed on the screen, her finger hovering over another checkbox. "I have taken nothing that belongs to TechVantage," I confirmed truthfully, meeting her gaze with an open, honest expression. The patent, after all, was mine. It belonged solely to me. As I began to pack the few personal items from my desk, the framed family photos that had brightened my corner office for years, a collection of worn conference badges marking 15 years of industry events and innovation, the slightly chipped coffee mug my team had lovingly given me last Christmas. Marjorie made a theatrical stop by my office. She leaned against my door frame with an air of artificial casualness, her eyes carefully tracking my movements as I placed items into a sturdy cardboard box. "I just wanted to check that everything's clear for your departure, Kira," she said, her voice laced with an insincere concern, crystal clear. I replied, my voice light and airy. I carefully wrapped a small, weighty award I had received years ago, an elegant glass plaque recognizing my contribution to the very algorithm now, at the very center of my meticulously crafted plans. The irony was not lost on me as I gently placed it between layers of soft tissue paper, tucking it away for its next, more appropriate display. "You know, Kira, these restructuring decisions are never personal," Marjorie continued, her voice softening, attempting to convey a sense of genuine regret. "Victor feels the company needs to move in a more youthful direction. A fresh perspective, as it were." I looked up, meeting her gaze directly, my expression unreadable. "I understand completely, Marjorie. Business is business." Something in my tone, Perhaps the utter lack of bitterness or the surprising absence of any overt emotion made her pause. For a brief, fleeting moment, a flicker of uncertainty, a shadow of doubt, crossed her carefully composed features. But she quickly dismissed it. What, after all, could a soon-to-be unemployed 55-year-old woman possibly do? "Will you be taking some time off?" she asked, an artificial note of concern creeping into her voice. A final attempt at polite, expected conversation. "Actually, I already have something lined up," I replied, a genuine smile playing on my lips. "I start Monday." "Oh." Surprise, unadulterated and fleeting, crossed her features. "That's fast. Anything interesting?" I smiled, a wide, confident smile. "Very. A leadership position, actually. I'm quite excited about it." She nodded absently, her mind already mentally moving on to other, more pressing matters of corporate intrigue. Well, good luck with that. The dismissal was clear. As I walked out of TechVantage's imposing glass headquarters for the final time, my keycard surrendered, my personal belongings in tow, I paused for a moment. I turned, taking a long, lingering look back at the gleaming building, the place where I had dedicated 15 years of my professional life, pouring my intellect and passion into its very foundation. On the top floor, I could see the executive conference room, brightly lit for an evening meeting. They were likely discussing how to redistribute my responsibilities among younger, less experienced, and significantly less expensive staff. Little did they know that in less than 72 hours, that very same room would not be hosting a routine planning session, but instead, an emergency crisis meeting of unprecedented magnitude. Monday morning dawned bright and clear, crisp with the promise of a new chapter. I dressed meticulously in my new charcoal suit, a power outfit I had specifically purchased for this momentous day. Its sharp lines and tailored fit exuded confidence and authority. The Precision Systems town car, sleek and professional, arrived precisely at 7:30 a.m., its polished surface gleaming in the morning light. It whisked me away to their state-of-the-art headquarters, where I would begin my first day as Chief Innovation Officer. The press release went live at 7 a.m., Greg informed me, a broad, triumphant smile on his face, as I settled into my spacious new corner office. The office boasted panoramic, floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline, a stark contrast to my previous, more confined workspace. Industry newsletters are already picking it up. I've got the communications team monitoring reactions closely. The announcement had been crafted with strategic precision, every word carefully chosen, every phrase imbued with maximum impact. The headline alone was enough to send ripples through the industry. Precision Systems acquires exclusive rights to revolutionary processing algorithm. Systems creator Dr. Kira Jennings joins as Chief Innovation Officer. The accompanying text detailed my extensive background, unequivocally emphasized my role as the sole inventor of the patented technology, and meticulously outlined how Precision Systems would be seamlessly integrating the algorithm into their next generation of groundbreaking products. Most importantly, and with crystal clarity, it stated that any company currently utilizing the technology implicitly, TechVantage would now need to negotiate licensing agreements with Precision Systems moving forward. The gauntlet had been thrown. At precisely 9:15 a.m., my phone vibrated with the first text message from my former team at TechVantage. "Complete chaos here."
"What did you do?"
It was from Miguel, my lead developer, his digital exclamation conveying a mixture of astonishment and urgent curiosity. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile as I typed back, "Check your personal email. All 6 of you have offers waiting." Meanwhile, 8 miles away at TechVantage headquarters, the scheduled Monday morning executive meeting was undergoing a dramatic, almost cataclysmic, transformation. According to Miguel's ongoing play-by-play updates throughout the morning, relayed in a series of frantic, breathless texts, Victor Lawson had arrived at the office to find the company's general counsel and chief financial officer already waiting at his door, both looking ashen-faced and visibly shaken. The industry announcement had hit their inboxes simultaneously, setting off immediate, deafening alarms throughout the highest echelons of the company. By 9:30 a.m., what should have been a routine start of week meeting had morphed, in a terrifyingly swift manner, into an emergency crisis session. Board members were scrambling to call in remotely, their voices crackling over strained conference lines. The legal team was frantically reviewing every single page of my employment contract, desperately poring over any documentation surrounding the algorithm's development, searching for any loophole, any shred of leverage. "They're pulling every file with your name on it, Kira," Miguel reported in one of his updates, the urgency palpable even through text. Someone just wheeled in all the servers from the research division for the tech team to analyze. They look like they're searching for a needle in a haystack, a very specific needle. I could picture the scene perfectly. Almost taste the panic in the air, Victor pacing the conference room like a caged tiger, his face contorted in disbelief, bellowing demands for explanations from Marjorie and the beleaguered legal department. The stock, I knew, would already be responding to the news, plummeting like a stone. Investors hated uncertainty, and the announcement had created an ocean of it. At 10:45 a.m., my phone lit up with an email from Victor himself, the desperation practically emanating from my screen, staining the pristine white background. The subject line was simply, "Urgent." The body of the email read, "Kira, there appears to be a grave misunderstanding. Please call me at your earliest convenience to discuss this matter immediately." I forwarded it to Precision Systems' legal team, without a single word of response. My message was conveyed by silence. By noon, the industry was buzzing with feverish speculation, a hive of digital chatter and frantic phone calls. TechVantage's stock had plummeted a staggering 7% since the market opened, wiping billions off its valuation, while Precision Systems, riding the wave of my announcement, had seen an impressive 12% increase. 3 different, prominent technology journals had already requested exclusive interviews with me, eager to chronicle the strategic coup that had so profoundly shaken the accounting software industry to its very core. "How are you feeling, Kira?" Greg asked, stopping by my office as I settled into the quiet hum of my new workspace. The city skyline stretching out beyond my windows. Validated. I replied honestly, the word a quiet echo of deep satisfaction. 15 years of watching others take credit for my work. 15 years of being told I should be grateful just to have a seat at the table, to be allowed to contribute. And now, finally, undeniable recognition. My new executive assistant, a poised and efficient woman named Sarah, appeared at the door, her expression politely deferential. "Dr. Jennings," she began, "the development team is ready for you in the main conference room." She hesitated for a moment, a faint, almost imperceptible frown creasing her brow. "And TechVantage's CEO has called 4 times in the last hour. Please let him know I'm in meetings all day." I replied calmly, my voice unwavering, "and that our legal team will reach out to discuss licensing options later this week." The implication was clear. The ball was in our court, and we would dictate the terms. As I walked towards my first meeting as Chief Innovation Officer, a sense of quiet power settling over me, my phone buzzed with yet another update from Miguel. "Board just called emergency session. Victor looks like he's about to explode. P.S. My team and I accept your offer. When can we start?" But Tuesday morning, the full, devastating impact of my departure had become excruciatingly clear to everyone at TechVantage. Their flagship product, AccountSphere, a behemoth in the market, relied entirely and irrevocably on my distributed processing algorithm to process the massive, complex data sets that gave it its undeniable edge over all competitors. Without immediate licensing rights to my patent, they faced two equally unpalatable, indeed catastrophic, options. Either negotiate with Precision Systems, a negotiation. They would enter from a position of profound weakness, or embark on the monumental, years-long task of rebuilding their core technology from scratch, a process that would require not only immense time, but also millions upon millions in development costs, with no guarantee of success. Victor has called an all-hands meeting for 2 p.m. today, Miguel texted, his message tinged with a quiet, almost gleeful satisfaction. It was his last day at TechVantage. He and the rest of my former team would be starting at Precision Systems next Monday, ready to contribute their brilliance to a company that actually valued it. Remember, he added, a note of caution. They're going to try to sue you. I forwarded his message directly to our legal department, who responded almost immediately. Their confidence absolute, let them try. Your documentation is impeccable. Development logs, timestamps, personal equipment usage all clearly established. We've prepared for this exact scenario. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new role with a remarkable ease that surprised even myself. The palpable respect I received at Precision Systems was a stark, invigorating contrast to my final, frustrating years at TechVantage. When I spoke in meetings, people actually listened, their expressions attentive, their questions thoughtful. My ideas weren't surreptitiously repackaged by male colleagues and presented as their own, an infuriating common occurrence in my past. My age and my extensive experience were viewed not as liabilities, but as invaluable assets, reservoirs of wisdom and strategic insight. The engineering team is already implementing your efficiency improvements. Kira, Greg informed me during our afternoon briefing, his voice buzzing with excitement. Early testing shows a 51% performance boost, even better than we projected. I had several refinements I never shared with TechVantage, I admitted, a slight, knowing smile playing on my lips. After I discovered they were planning to eliminate my position, I saw no reason to give them my absolute best work. Why would I? Their loss, our gain. Greg replied with a genuinely satisfied smile, a glint of triumph in his eyes. Speaking of which, the first licensing inquiry came in this morning. Not from TechVantage yet, they're still in denial, I suspect. But from Dataflow Systems. They're worried about being caught in the crossfire. The dominoes were beginning to fall. At 30:30 p.m., Miguel sent a detailed, almost theatrical account of Victor's all-hands meeting. The CEO, he reported, had tried desperately to project an air of confidence, assuring the beleaguered staff that TechVantage would vigorously defend our proprietary technology. But the anxiety in the room, Miguel relayed, had been palpable, a thick, suffocating cloud. Several employees had already, with an almost defiant urgency, updated their LinkedIn profiles, sensing the company's profound vulnerability and preparing to jump ship. Marjorie looked like she was about to faint when someone asked directly if they'd failed to secure the patent. Miguel reported, adding a digital chuckle. Victor cut the question period short after that. The panic was real. By Wednesday, the industry fallout had intensified, spreading like a contagion. Two major clients, giants in their respective fields, had directly contacted Precision Systems about switching from AccountSphere, expressing profound concern about TechVantage's ability to maintain the product's integrity and future development without the algorithm's original creator. Our stock had risen another 8%, building on the previous day's gains, while TechVantage's continued its precipitous decline, mirroring their collapsing reputation. Then my phone rang. It was Denise from HR, the same woman who had, just days earlier, so dispassionately slid my severance package across the table. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was carefully professional, meticulously calibrated to mask any hint of desperation. Kira, she began, I'm calling to discuss the, situation with your patent. We believe there may have been a misunderstanding about ownership rights. I don't think there's any misunderstanding, Denise, I replied calmly, my voice firm and unwavering. My employment agreement clearly states that intellectual property developed on my own time, using my own resources, remains unequivocally mine. The patent documentation, which has been thoroughly reviewed and granted, confirms exactly that. There was a long pause on the other end, a moment of stark silence where Denise was clearly struggling to formulate her next words. Finally, she managed. Victor, hoping you might consider coming in to discuss options. Any discussions would need to go through Precision Systems' legal department now. Denise, I responded, offering no quarter. I'm sure they'd be happy to set up a meeting to discuss licensing terms. The unsaid part was the hefty price tag that would accompany those terms. The silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes, a profound admission of defeat. Finally, Denise sighed, a sound heavy with resignation. I'll pass that along. That afternoon, I led my first formal presentation to the Precision Systems Board of Directors. I stood confidently at the head of the polished boardroom table, bathed in the natural light, streaming through the expansive windows, not hidden away in the back as I had so often been at TechVantage. I outlined our ambitious technology roadmap, my patented algorithm at its very heart, the blueprint for our future innovations. As I spoke, clear and articulate, I caught Greg's approving nod, a silent affirmation of my leadership. By Friday, just 1 week after I had walked out of TechVantage for the last time, the company had entered full-blown crisis mode. Their stock had plummeted a breathtaking 23% from Monday's opening bell, triggering frantic, concerned calls from major investors, their voices laced with panic. Industry analysts were publishing speculative pieces with increasingly sensational titles. Can TechVantage survive the algorithm crisis? And how one strategic blunder may cost a tech giant everything. Through my extensive network of industry contacts, I learned that Victor had finally, reluctantly, acknowledged the severity of the situation to the board. TechVantage would need to either license my algorithm from Precision Systems, likely at exorbitant rates that would devastate their already shrinking profit margins, or undertake a complete, costly rebuild of AccountSphere without using any technology covered by my patent. The latter was a Herculean task, fraught with peril. They've started interviewing for a new development team. Kira. Miguel informed me during our Friday video call, where we discussed his upcoming, smooth transition to Precision Systems. Victor's claiming they can recreate the functionality in 6 months. I couldn't help but laugh, a genuine, mirthful sound. The original algorithm took me 3 years to perfect, Miguel, and that was with intimate, foundational knowledge of the problem space. 6 months is a fantasy. Exactly. Miguel agreed, shaking his head. Nobody's believing the timeline. Especially after your team posted their resignation letters simultaneously this morning. The knowledge drain is massive. They're running on fumes. That afternoon, TechVantage's attorneys, finally capitulating, reached out to Precision Systems to formally open a dialogue about potential licensing arrangements. Our legal team, meticulously following the aggressive yet fair strategy we had developed, responded with terms that were technically equitable, but strategically painful. 3 times the standard industry licensing rate, plus a non-negotiable public acknowledgement of my role as the technology's sole, original inventor. They'll balk at the acknowledgement more than the cost. Kira. Greg predicted, a knowing glint in his eye, as we reviewed the response in his office. Victor's ego won't allow him to publicly admit he pushed out the very person who created their core technology. Then they'll have to rebuild, I replied, my voice calm but firm. And every single day they spend trying to replicate my work, trying to catch up, is another day we extend our insurmountable lead in the market. The following Monday morning, precisely 10 days after my unceremonious dismissal, I led the first official meeting with my newly assembled innovation team. It included Miguel and the other 5 brilliant engineers from TechVantage, their faces alight with enthusiasm. The energy in the room was electric, crackling with creative potential, as we mapped out the next evolution of my algorithm, discussing groundbreaking enhancements and future applications. "This is how development meetings should be," commented Anita, one of my former team members, a bright spark of an engineer. At TechVantage, we spent half our time explaining basic concepts to executives who wouldn't listen anyway. It was soul-crushing. That's the fundamental difference between being valued and being seen as entirely replaceable, I replied, meeting her gaze. Here, your expertise isn't just recognized, it's celebrated and amplified. As we wrapped up the incredibly productive session, Sarah, my executive assistant, appeared at the door, her eyes wide with a barely contained excitement. "Dr. Jennings, there's been a significant development with TechVantage. Their board just announced an emergency leadership change. Victor Lawson is stepping down, effective immediately." The news spread with astonishing speed. Within hours, industry publications were reporting, in breathless detail, that TechVantage's board had lost all confidence in Victor's leadership, citing the disastrous patent oversight that threatened the company's flagship product. Marjorie Thompson was also out, her corporate career seemingly over, along with the head of legal who had demonstrably failed to properly secure the patent, triggering the entire debacle. That evening I received an unexpected email. It was from Richard Donovan, TechVantage's newly appointed interim CEO. Unlike Victor's desperate, pleading message from the previous week, this one was straightforward, respectful, and entirely professional. "Dr. Jennings," it read, "congratulations on your new position. I've been brought in to help TechVantage navigate the current challenging situation. I'd like to discuss a fair licensing arrangement for your patented technology. We're prepared to acknowledge your contributions publicly and make appropriate amends for the oversights of previous management. Would you be available to meet next week?" I forwarded the email to Greg, adding a simple, triumphant note. "Phase 1, complete." His reply came quickly, vibrating in my hand. "Beautifully executed. The board is celebrating your first major victory for precision systems. Looks like TechVantage is finally learning an expensive, invaluable lesson about valuing true innovation and the innovators who create it." 3 months after my profound departure from TechVantage, I sat on the brightly lit stage at the National Technology Innovation Conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. The vast auditorium was filled to capacity with industry leaders, astute technology journalists, and eager, aspiring developers, many of whom now knew my story, a testament to its impact. And now, the conference organizer announced, his voice booming through the sound system, "I'm pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Kira Jennings, Chief Innovation Officer at Precision Systems, and the brilliant creator of the distributed processing algorithm that has revolutionized data handling across multiple industries." The applause was substantial, a thunderous ovation that resonated through the hall. As I approached the podium, a quiet sense of accomplishment settling over me. What a profound difference a mere few months could make. Just last year, I had attended this very same conference as a nameless part of the TechVantage delegation, seated in the back rows, observing quietly while Victor Lawson delivered a self-congratulatory presentation about his company's innovations. "Thank you," I began, my voice clear and confident, surveying the attentive faces before me. "Today, I want to talk about innovation ownership, the profound importance of properly valuing intellectual contributions, regardless of where they come from, and the power of knowing your worth. My presentation detailed the intricate technical aspects of my algorithm, explaining its nuances and its wide-ranging applications, but it also delved into the broader, more critical issues of recognition, respect, and ethical conduct within the technology sector. Without directly mentioning TechVantage, I subtly but firmly emphasized the paramount importance of companies protecting and nurturing their innovators, rather than seeing them as mere, replaceable resources to be exploited. Afterward, during the bustling reception, several young women engineers, their faces alight with admiration and curiosity, approached me, seeking advice and mentorship. One of them, barely 30, confided, her voice hushed, "Dr. Jennings, your story fundamentally changed how I document my work. I started keeping detailed logs of my development process on personal time-stamped everything." "Smart," I replied, offering her a genuine, encouraging smile. "Your innovations deserve protection. Your ideas deserve to be explicitly linked to your name." As the evening concluded, I checked my phone. A new industry news alert had just popped up. TechVantage had finally, officially, announced the licensing agreement with Precision Systems, acknowledging me by name as the algorithm's creator. Their stock had stabilized, a sigh of relief for their investors, though at a significantly lower valuation than before my departure. The circle was complete. 1 year to the day after being told to clean out my desk, I sat comfortably in my spacious office at Precision Systems, bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, reviewing the quarterly innovation report. Under my leadership, the company had released 3 groundbreaking products, all built upon the robust foundation of my algorithm, capturing significant market share from TechVantage and other less agile competitors. A soft knock at my door interrupted my analysis. It was Greg, holding a chilled bottle of champagne and 2 elegant flutes. "Happy anniversary, Kira," he said, setting the glasses gently on my desk. "The board asked me to share the news with you personally before the public announcement. Precision Systems has officially surpassed TechVantage in market valuation for the first time in company history." I smiled, feeling not a sense of vindictive triumph, but a quiet, profound satisfaction. "That's what happens," I said, looking out at the city, "when you value innovation properly." As Greg poured the sparkling champagne, filling the flutes with effervescent gold, my assistant delivered a sleek, ivory envelope. Inside was an invitation to speak at Women in Technology's annual leadership summit. The topic: Owning Your Intellectual Value, How Proper Documentation Changed an Industry. "You've become something of an icon, you know, Kira," Greg commented, noticing the invitation in my hand. "The story about the executive who didn't recognize what she had until it was gone has become a cautionary tale, whispered in corporate boardrooms across the country." Richard Donovan, who had remained as TechVantage's CEO after the crisis, had implemented sweeping, fundamental changes in how the company recognized and rewarded innovation. Their new policies on intellectual property protection and explicit inventor recognition were reportedly modeled, almost entirely, after the very program I had established at Precision Systems. "It was never about revenge, Greg," I said, raising my glass in a toast, the champagne bubbles tickling my nose. "It was about recognition. It was about showing the industry, once and for all, that innovation isn't anonymous. It comes from real people, with real minds, who deserve real credit, to proper recognition." Greg agreed, clinking his glass against mine, the delicate sound a chime of victory. As the afternoon sun streamed through the panoramic windows of my office, casting long shadows across the gleaming floor, I reflected on my extraordinary journey. At 56, I had finally found what had consistently eluded me throughout my entire career. Not just commercial success, but true, undeniable acknowledgement. My name was now permanently, inextricably attached to the algorithm that had changed an entire industry. Exactly where it belonged.